All right, this is Obey on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we're going to be talking about price floors and price ceilings. Okay, now price floors and price ceilings are a type of government regulation. Okay, so this is government regulation, and when the government sets up a price ceiling, let's say a government sets a maximum price, okay, the suppliers cannot go over that price when it comes to selling their product, okay, or service. And when a government sets a price floor, it basically means that the suppliers cannot sell below that particular price. Okay, so you have price floors and price ceiling being regulated by the government. Now, if you were to draw this on a graph, suppose this is your supply curve over here, this is your demand, and this is your equilibrium. All right. So in this case, what's going to end up happening is the government will set a price floor somewhere over here, or price ceiling somewhere over here, rather. Okay. You can also set a price floor over here, but that has to do with agriculture, for example, and we'll talk about that later. Okay. So let's start off with price ceiling. Okay. So let's say the government starts off with a price ceiling somewhere over here at this price level, and this price is $30. Okay, and suppose the equilibrium point, okay, is this one over here, where the suppliers are willing to supply at a price where the consumers are willing to buy. And let's assume that this equilibrium point is $20. Okay, and at this point, at this price, the suppliers, okay, are willing to supply, let's say, 30 units, and the consumers are willing to buy 30 units. Okay, so there is an agreement on the price as well as the quantity. Okay, the quantity demanded equals quantity supplied, and the prices are the same. Now, if for some reason, okay, the supplier decided to change his or her price, now in that case, he won't be able to go over this price ceiling because this is sort of like your maximum price. Okay, this is your maximum price. Okay, however, if the consumers, let's say they had a change in taste or preferences, let's say the consumer demographics change, okay, maybe there is more demand for a product than there was before, okay, because of the booming elderly population or the total number of infants, okay, as a result of which, let's say, childcare or investment products, the demand for investment products go up. Okay, in that case, what's going to end up happening is the demand curve, which is this one over here, let's suppose this is D0, this will shift to the right. And when it shifts to the right, this will be a new equilibrium point. And let's assume that this is EQ1. All right, now at this new equilibrium point, obviously the quantity demanded, okay, goes up and the price goes up as well. Okay, so the price goes up and the quantity demanded goes up. Okay, and that's because of change in the factor that impacts quantity demanded. Okay, so one of the factors that impact quantity demand, okay, changes, then obviously you will have a new equilibrium point. Okay, likewise, okay, if you do have this change, what's going to end up happening is there's going to be an excess of demand or shortage. And the reason why there's going to be a shortage is because the quantity in demand, suppose this is D1, this is more, okay, than the quantity being supplied. Because remember, the supply curve has not changed as a result of this price ceiling and the change in taste. So unless the price ceiling, okay, changes the supply curve as well, changes the location of the supply curve and shifts the supply curve to the right, okay, there will be a shortage. Okay, so in that case, you have a shortage. Now, on the other side, if you were to understand price floor, okay, price floor would be a point below the equilibrium point. Okay, so just like price ceiling is a point above the equilibrium point, your price floor will be a point below the equilibrium point. Okay, so let's assume that this is your price floor over here. Okay, and let's assume this is $10. And let's assume that this has to do with minimum wages, which means obviously the businesses and the employers cannot pay below $10 per hour to any employee they decide to hire because it's a government regulation, it's a price floor. Okay, now in that case, your equilibrium point will go further down over here. And at this point, your price will be less. Okay, and okay, your quantity will stay the same. Okay, so basically, it means that this is your price floor, okay, and the quantity of labor stays the same as long as you have a price floor over here. Okay, so for $10 an hour minimum wages, the quantity of labor will stay the same. Okay, it won't change. Okay, however, okay, for some reason, let's assume, okay, that for agriculture, for example, okay, the government decides to set the price floor over here above the equilibrium point. Okay, so if that happens, what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a surplus. Okay, so there's going to be a surplus of goods or products being produced. Okay, as a result of which, when it comes to agriculture, for example, the farmers will either sell these products, these surplus, to the government, or the government will provide subsidies for farmers. So that way they can keep on producing, okay, at the equilibrium point, okay, and they can keep on having this surplus over here, okay, despite the changes in other factors of production. All right. So this is basically price ceiling and price floor for you. On behalf of V Electronics, this is Obaid. Have yourself a great day.